Hello everybody! Today I have a video about another level that I uploaded to Super Mario Maker 2. However, it's not another extremely difficult level, and it's also not another combination lock level. It's actually a level that a lot of you could beat. This is a level made specifically for multiplayer versus, and it's a level that I've wanted to make for a long time. It's also my first level on my alt account called Papanga_02. I decided to make this account for all my non-traditional Kaizo levels with the exception of my brute force levels. I'll put the maker ID in the description for those that want to follow it. And without further ado, I present my multiplayer versus level, Hot Potato. Although it is impossible to upload levels specifically for multiplayer versus, since the uploader has to upload the level in single player mode, people have come up with complicated contraptions that allow you to detect the type of level that is being played, whether it's single player, local multiplayer, or multiplayer versus. Based on how this level is laid out, it's actually impossible to beat the level the intended way in single player mode and local multiplayer, so it is strictly a multiplayer versus level. I actually had to make a separate level within this one for people that get this level in endless mode, or if you just want to play the level out. It's sort of a dev route in a way, but regardless, I still had to beat it this way. So at the very beginning of the level, you must wait out a P-switch timer. This is to let the level type detection mechanism work its magic. I won't go into all the details on how it works, but I'll link a video in the description on where I got the information from. But all you need to know is that the single player mode takes you through the pipe, while versus mode takes you through the door. First, I'll explain what the single player path looks like. After you enter the door, you are presented with this room. This room basically resembles what the level would look like if played in the multiplayer path and tries to emulate the Hot Potato game as best as possible. It starts off with a giant Bob-omb that goes through a clear pipe and exits on the same side as the player. On the other side of the clear pipes are red POWs, and the goal of this room is to have the Bob-omb blow up on the same side of the POWs so that it can blow up the red blocks directly above the player, which allows them to exit through the blue pipe. Since you are small, you cannot break the red blocks by yourself. And since the area is enclosed, having the bomb blow up on the same side as you will kill you. The icicle next to the pipe prevents the player from just standing next to the clear pipe, which would make the bomb travel back pretty much immediately, taking out a lot of fun in this. The neat thing about this is that Bob-omb timers are paused when entering clear pipes, which is why this idea was only plausible in 3D world. You can think of this room as a practice room, or one where you're facing an AI. After exiting the blue pipe, there are blocks that read GG, and that's the end of the level. This path is required because without it, I would not be able to upload it to Nintendo's servers. So now, what does the multiplayer path look like? So one thing I forgot to include in the level while editing this video is a mechanism that prevents players from re-entering the room after they have lost, which is why I added this to the beginning of the level. This blue on-off spike block now sits below the door, which can only be entered when the on-off state is on. In the next room, I added a bullet bill launcher that will fall on top of a Bob-omb once the P-switch timer runs out, which then activates the block and setting it to the off state. That means that the blue spike block will now kill players, preventing them from re-entering the room. Also, just pretend the rest of the spike blocks are blue in the video to compensate for this. Well, after going through the door, there is a room containing 4 different colored pipes, which represents each of the 4 players. Immediately upon entering the room, another P-switch is activated, which blocks entrance to each of the pipes. Unlike the last room, this P-switch timer is always triggered until all players are in their respective pipes, because above the room are 5 thwomps which are placed at a precise Y position. When at least one player is still above the upper area, one of the thwomps will get triggered, activating the P-switch. So the only way to stop the P-switch timer is by being below the donut block. And since each section is only 1 block wide, it prevents more than one person going into the same pipe, which would break this level. This is to ensure that each player goes into a different pipe. So once each player is in their respective pipes and goes through, they are presented in a room that reads Semi-Finals. This is used to dictate that the players are now in a 1v1 situation with another player. Unfortunately, having all 4 players at the same time is extremely complicated and not worth the trouble, so I decided to lay it out like a mini tournament. After running to the end of the room, each player will enter either side of the next room, and this room is where all the magic happens. This one screen is probably the most complicated thing you will see, and I wanted everything to fit on one screen so that both players have the exact same camera angle, which adds the multiplayer minigame type of feel, like in Mario Party. Alright, listen carefully because I'm about to drop a lot of knowledge. So to begin, each player will enter on either side of the room. The first person that enters the room also activates this thrown spiny shell contraption. This shell will bounce off a wall and fall into the enclosed area blocked off by thwomps and will continuously bounce back and forth. The only option for the player at this point is to jump onto the upper area. Once the player enters this area, an off-screen thwomp gets triggered, which blows up this Bob-omb, triggering the exclamation block, which pushes this thwomp upwards, making it the same X position as the ground. This setup is identical for the other side, so once the other player also enters this area, the exact same mechanism gets triggered. This is important because the room will not work until both players are in the upper area. Basically, this is saying that the game will not start until both players are ready. If only one thwomp gets pushed up, the shell will stay in the enclosed area. But once the second thwomp gets pushed up, when the second player is ready, basically, then the shell will get pushed up by the thwomp and kill the red blocks. And depending on when the second person is ready, the shell will go either to the left or right. This is to pseudo-randomize which person will receive the hot potato bomb first, so that it doesn't favor one side. Once the shell enters a side, it bounces off this mushroom platform and hits a block, which contains an ignited Bob-omb in it. The shell will then fall down through this hole and blow up the red POW block, which will cause a chain reaction and blows up all the other POW blocks. This chain reaction blows up the bricks on both sides, which makes it not matter which side of the shell it goes. As the ignited Bob-omb continues to walk, it will blow up right in the middle of these gray blocks, which causes both the giant Bob-omb to be ignited and also the bullet bill launcher to fall. The conveyor pushes both sprites towards the player, which starts the game. The bullet bill launcher prevents the player from hitting the Bob-omb on the wrong side. The player that starts with the Bob-omb can either wait or jump to hit the Bob-omb into the clear pipe, giving it to the other player. The other player then has those same options, and at this point, it's a matter on which side the bomb is going to blow up. Like with the single player path, the icicles prevent the players from camping next to the clear pipe, which is also why the spike blocks are necessary. Once the red POW blocks finish blowing up, the yellow pipe becomes active, which now allows more ignited Bob-ombs to spawn. The pipe was blocked off to prevent Bob-ombs from spawning before the other player even entered the room, which would cause them to wander prematurely. As the Bob-ombs start walking, this thwomp continuously crushes them and prevents them from crossing, and they can only cross when the thwomp stops being activated. This is the player has died mechanism, which detects when a player has lost a game. When a player dies, this thwomp will no longer be activated, allowing the Bob-omb to cross and blow up this skip squeak, which contains a key and gives it to the only person in the room, allowing them to move on to the next room. At this point, only 2 players are remaining, which means they both move on to the finals. After traversing through this room, they are presented with the same exact room, but this time, these doors lead to the end of the level, and that's basically it. So, I hope you got all that down. Now, despite this being so dang complicated, it does have a few major flaws. First off, this level only works with exactly 4 people. This means that if you get into a lobby with only 2 or 3 people, you cannot beat this level. This is due to the 1v1 layout of the level, since this room only works when both players are in the upper area. If one player never manages to get to that point, the game will never start, which means everyone times out. Tangentially, if 2 people somehow end up getting in the same section, whether by one person waiting outside the previous room for all the other players to choose a section, the level breaks. Now this could have been avoided if I took out the both players are ready condition, but I did not want to give one player an advantage over the other. And secondly, if both people somehow end up dying in the same room, whether it be from the icicles or the spike or the bomb, then no one will move on, which leaves the person in the finals not being able to start the final game. I'm also not sure if the room will reload if both players do end up getting back into that room. However, if only one person dies to the icicles or the spikes, then everything is fine since it's basically a free win for the other player so long as they live until they get the key from the skip squeak. So this level would probably not work in ranks lower than S since people won't get what to do or will probably die to the icicles or spikes accidentally. But people in S or S Plus should hopefully have a blast playing this as long as there is some level of cooperation amongst the players. And for what I've seen, people in those ranks generally seem that way, especially with the wait at flag meta. But worst case scenario, all players can vote to start over, which is why I left the timer at 500 since the time does not reset. So how do you know this level is actually possible in multiplayer versus? Good question, right? Well, I don't. However, I was able to test each room in local multiplayer, so at the very least I know the game itself worked. Since Mario Maker 2 doesn't have a way to test with more than 2 people, and with co-op you can't enter different pipes and doors, which makes testing a pain. Also, versus mode conditions are different too, since things spawn differently than all the other modes, so the best thing I can do is hope. I don't even know if this level will end up making it into the versus mode rotation, but hopefully the higher than 0.01% clear rate like all my other levels will help. Unfortunately, there is no easy way to see if a level is possible in multiplayer versus, so the best I can do is hope. Honestly, the hardest part about designing this was the mechanism that detects when a player has died. And for a 4-player minigame, detecting when only one person is left alive is a greater challenge that I've been trying to overcome since I plan on making more Mario Party-like levels, which often involves all players in the same room or arena. So if anyone that's watching this has any ideas on how to get a mechanism like that to work, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Sorry if this wasn't the normal, this level is impossible, oh my god type of level, but I do want to branch out from only making those types of levels, which is what I did in the first Mario Maker. Again, I do have an alt account that I will try to upload my other level ideas onto, so be sure to follow Papanga_02 for more levels. I do stream on Twitch, so if you're ever interested in the level design process, be sure to follow that, which I will link in the description below. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching.